Welcome to the show. This evening my guest will be Mr. John Stotler. You're the chair of the LGBT Community Center. How you doing there, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Paul?
Great. Tell the audience about the LGBT community.
Sure. I've been the board chair at the LGBT Community Center for about a year now. I've been on the board for going on 3 years. And we do a lot of events and activities for the community, to support the community. We provide space for other organizations and groups within the community to meet, to hold activities and events. Recently we partnered with the Charlotte Business Guild, which is the kind of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce here in Charlotte. They had U.S. Attorney Ann Tompkins come and speak to their group, and we held that at the center. We've got HRC and Equality North Carolina using our space for volunteer events and getting volunteers to come in and make calls and get people to take action on legislation in our state. We've got a lot of events. We've got a gentleman comes in and offers free Tai Chi classes every Monday night. So it's a wide range of products and services that we offer for the LGBT community.
What do you like most about being the chair?
Oh, I don't know. Gosh. It gives me a great opportunity to meet a lot of people in the community, to share my story, to share the story of our center, to share the story of the LGBT community with people outside of our community, to put a face and to really, I think, express how the broader community can support the LGBT community better, and some of the things that we can do. So,
you had an event with the Stonewall.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
And what impact does that have on your life?
Sure. Saturday, we celebrated the Stonewall Riots in New York City. Those happened in 1969. But it was the first time that LGBT people in this country stood up and said, we're not going to put up with oppression anymore. They'd been living fairly quiet lives, but the police raided a club in New York City, and the LGBT people in that club said, we've had enough. And so they pushed back and gave some resistance to the police, and it was, it's been, since then, kind of the watershed event that kind of started the gay rights movement in this country. And here we are 40 years later, and we're still talking about it and its impact on our community. But our organization several months ago said, we need to do something in Charlotte to commemorate Stonewall, to continue the education and celebration of that event. And so we just had a cookout and games, and showed a movie called Before Stonewall, which really kind of chronicles life of LGBT Americans prior to that event. And there's a follow-up movie which we're going to show sometime in the near future called After Stonewall, that then takes you to what this country's been like since Stonewall. But it was a good time. We had about 100 people there. Had some city council members come. It was a really good day. It was a little warm out there, but we had a lot of fun. Good time. So,
what do you see as far as progress, as far as the community?
Sure. I think the biggest event that's happened recently is the New York State Legislature legalizing same-sex marriage in New York State. That only the second state to do it by legislation rather than judicial means. It was, and of course it was the night before our event here in Charlotte that they did that, so we had a lot to celebrate here in Charlotte. It was also Pride weekend in New York City and San Francisco and some other large cities around the country. So they had an enormous amount to celebrate with the passage of that. It really, the fact that some conservative members of the New York legislature came across the aisle there to support this was a big deal, and a really proud moment, I think, for a lot of folks. I remember the next day watching a little clip on the television from that when they made the announcement in the actual Senate House that it had passed, and the cheer that went up in there just kind of made my heart swell and made me feel good. But it's things continually change, and we've Massachusetts was the first state to legalize same-sex marriage, and that was several years ago, and we've seen now 6 states legalize that, and the District of Columbia as well. So we're seeing progress. It's slow. A lot of people, I think, disagree with the fact that it's moving so slow, but I look at it as we're still moving forward. We're making progress. Salisbury, North Carolina, a little town not far from here that most people know, held their first Pride event this June, and that was amazing. Just that a small community like Salisbury, the LGBT population there, wanted to come out and have a festival and share the art and culture of our community with the broader community. Was a big thing. We're seeing a lot more things like that in small communities like Salisbury across the state and across the United States.
As you watch that footage of the Stonewall incident, looking at it in today's world, how do you see a change, as far as how we look at the LGBT community, or is it kind of like still in that area?
I think it really depends on where you are, but and when I say that, I mean not just geographically, but in an individual's journey, towards accepting diversity and inclusion, and being open to accepting people who are different than them. But it's things have changed as to can will Stonewall, could something like that happen today? Probably, and probably does. I think what we've seen over the last even 10 years is a much broader acceptance of LGBT people. If you look at polls that have been done around employment non-discrimination, around same-sex marriage, around gay adoption, and things like that, year after year, those numbers are becoming more favorable for the LGBT community. More and more people are just saying, hey, I think I'm all right with this, and this is good. So,
where's your center located at, and how do you, coming on, inspire those individuals that want to get more information about the LGBT Community Center?
Sure. The LGBT Community Center of Charlotte is located at the North Carolina Music Factory. We're on Hamilton Street at the Music Factory, right off of Graham Street near downtown. It's a great location. We love being over there. We've had a really good relationship with the Music Factory. Of course, it's at its heart an arts and cultural facility, and concerts and a lot of things like that. And the Comedy Zone is over there now, so a lot of fun times there. But we love it over there. It's a great place for us to be. I think it's still something that's new, that the Music Factory's only been over there a couple of years, so people still aren't 100% sure how to get there. We've got great directions on our website for how to get there, and that's at gaycharlotte.com. So that's probably the best way to find us and find out what's going on at the center and in our community. We're going to have some pretty exciting things coming up soon with the center and some new announcements. So
it's outstanding. What type of services do you provide at your center?
Well, as you and I have talked about before, we offer space for other organizations to meet. We've got everything from office space. If somebody needs temporary office space, we had fairly recently, for several months, we had some folks in from Equality, North Carolina. They just needed some office space to use several times a week. They were addressing the anti-gay marriage amendment in the North Carolina legislation. So they were spending a lot of time calling volunteers and calling donors and calling our representatives, and they just needed, some place to sit and work.
Correct.
So we have that, plus we have a large space that we can use for events and meetings and shows. We do the Gay Charlotte film series. We show movies in that space. We have dinners and receptions and events. We've had the mayor come and speak, and chief of police. We're going to have hopefully a lot more of our representatives. We at the center have hosted for 3 years the Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Correct.
Every November, so it's a wide variety of things. We're working on becoming a full-time center, so we're open more, and we've got computer stations, so people that have a need, maybe they don't have computer services at home.
Correct.
They can come in and do job searches or work on their resume or whatever. We've partnered with other organizations in the city to do an employment boot camp last fall, where we spent all day. We brought people in, professional people from various companies around Charlotte, to come in and help people figure out how to interview best and how to prepare yourself for the job search and resume writing and things like that. So that was a really powerful event that we did for our community in a time when it is really needed in our community. So a lot of things. We have free HIV testing every Wednesday at the center in partnership with a couple of agencies in the city. So anybody, any Wednesday can come into the center and get a test. It's confidential and free. So a lot of different things that going on at the center.
We're running short on time. John, I see a lot of passion. Where's that passion coming from? I see it.
It comes from growing up thinking I was the only one. And it comes from, some times in my life where I was made to feel less than. And so the passion I think that I have now for the LGBT community and for activism in that community comes from, I don't want anybody else to feel that way. Anything that I can do, anything that I can say, just being me and being out there and telling my story and being visible, I'm hoping that maybe I can impact somebody else so that they don't have to experience the same loneliness and things that I did as a child growing up. When I thought, hey, there's nobody else out there like me. So that's where it comes from.
When you see those new individuals coming into your center, we're running short on time, but when you see those new individuals coming into the center, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great. Somebody's found us, they're encouraged, they're taking their step forward to claim who they are.
So if they wanted to contact you for more information, how would they do that?
Sure. We're at gaycharlotte.com. That's the best way to get us. Our phone number, information is on that website on how to contact us via email and phone number. So,
really appreciate you coming on the show, and continue the success in the LGBT Community Center.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for watching the show, and you be encouraged. LGBT John Stotler.
It has always been a dirty word. I cannot remember in my 70-some years the time when it wasn't a dirty word. But on the other hand, homosexuality, the practice of it, was not a dirty thing.
I had a decided advantage when I was very young in the fact that I have an aunt, Kate, and an uncle, Vince, who were both gay. They approved of everything I did and encouraged me. And my father hated them because they didn't get married. See, nobody knew much about the gay life, because outside of the cowboys, and that was natural to them. It's never been brought out, but they were definitely gay because they had to have sex. If they didn't have sex with the others, they had it with animals.
He was only a lavender cowboy, the hairs on his chest number 2, but he longed to follow the hero and fight like the he-men do. But he was inwardly troubled by a dream that gave him no rest, that he'd go with the heroes in action with only 2 hairs on his chest.
For most people who were attracted to members of their own sex, denial of these feelings was their only choice. Getting caught often resulted in ruined lives, imprisonment, commitment to institutions, or suicide.
My mother was told that I was living a lesbian life with Valerie. All she had to say was I was living a lesbian life, and that was grounds to have you committed to an insane asylum without any hearing, especially. At least I was picked up off the street on a Friday, thrown in the police car. They came to the apartment house, and Val knew about it. They knew that she knew they were out there on the street looking for me, so she came and found me first and warned me. But I never got to the apartment. They took me right from the street and put me down into the cycle ward at General Hospital.
When I come out, we didn't have the word gay. The word for us is temperamental. So we're temperamental, we're that way. This is about all they had for us. This is about all we had for ourselves.
We didn't call it, we did it.
What you call now in the life, but then you just sweethearts. Wasn't no particular name. You know you liked the woman, and you just liked the woman. The first time that I liked a girl, no more than about 14 years old.
Sometimes you would look into a person's eyes, he would look into your eyes, and all of a sudden you'd know through the eyes. You knew each other by a red necktie. It was very daring to wear a hanky that matched the tie. And the moment that you saw that, no matter what the color was, you figured that there was a brother there. After you had cruised each other by chasing each other back and forth from looking in the same window at the same thing for quite a while, you might ask the person, do you have a match, or can you tell me the time? These were the little things that we would be using in the 20s, and we were still using them in the 30s, I might add. That whole society would have been known as the gay society, or the gay world, or the world of the demi-monde, the world of the twilight, the world of night. And so all the people who had to do with that area were always considered people that were totally disrespectable, and therefore of very questionable morals. And this would be the world of dance. This is the world of the artists. These were the world of the people who flitted around in the parks and the forests at night, the Bois de Boulogne, for example, or Hyde Park in London, or along the rivers, both the Thames and the Seine. The people who would be out at night wandering around loose without going specifically from one place to another were obviously there for no good purpose. And so this is known as the world of the demi-monde. This is the twilight world as it was known in the earliest 20th century, and it is the world of the gay people. And the gay, therefore, covers all of these people. It covers prostitutes, covers ladies of doubtful virtue, gentlemen of doubtful virtue, all those unsavory characters.
The 1920s, a time of economic prosperity, prohibition and speakeasies, saw an increase in the population of America's cities. While most homosexuals continued to live in isolation and secrecy, a few began to gather in bohemian neighborhoods, such as San Francisco's Barbary Coast, New Orleans' French Quarter, New York's Harlem and Greenwich Village, where freer social norms allowed the beginnings of a homosexual underground.
The main thought behind the thing was to break the law and live as wild as you could. And everybody did, because the speakeasies were all over the town. Even the old residences, some of them had speakeasies in the basements. Now, a lot of people write about prohibition, but they don't bring out the fact that everybody was breaking the law because it was the thing to do.
Rent parties were given. You would pay maybe 50 cents or $1. That entitled you to saltine crackers with a piece of salami, and then they would have bathtub gin, which meant that in their bathtubs they put a gallon of alcohol, and it was frappéd with a lot of ice to paralyze your sense of taste, and it was colored with grenadine to make it pink. These were gay parties that we went to. Often, after the parties, we would go home with people we chanced to meet there.
New York is a kind of a place that everybody comes to. Harlem was a mecca for black people. And so blacks came. And since blacks come from everywhere, just like everybody else comes from everywhere, the only difference was that blacks had a specific place to go to, and that was Harlem.
And we had lots of clubs, lots of bars.
Well, my favorite one was the Garden of Joy up on a hill up on 32nd Street. It's where the church is now. Clayton Powell's church.
Abyssinia?
Abyssinia, yeah. That was a hill. And you had a beautiful time up there. Oh, girl, you had some time up there.
You see, those places were not gay, but they were open. The whole atmosphere was open.
It was almost impossible not to know everybody that happened to pass through Harlem at that time. Black, white, grizzle, or gray, it doesn't make any difference.
Harlem's more exclusive clubs, featuring black performers, catered to white tourists. However, the more adventurous whites, among the many homosexuals, were welcome in black clubs and the freewheeling buffet flats.
I think one of the great attractions in Harlem was to go to Gladys Bentley's little hideaway down in a basement where she played a piano. Gladys Bentley was a very overt lesbian.
I don't think I'd ever seen Gladys in a skirt in my life. She always wore pants and tuxedos. During her stint at the Clam House, she went off to Atlantic City and married her girlfriend.
Went out last night with a crowd of my friends. Been mustering women, cause I don't like no men. It's true I wear a collar and a tie. Make the wind blow all the while. But to say I do it, ain't nobody caught me. They sure got to prove it on me.
Well, I met quite a few singers. Mostly all of them, like Ethel Waters and Smith and Hunter.
Did you know if any of them were in the Life?
They were all in there. I wouldn't have been meeting them if they hadn't have been in there, because I wouldn't bother nobody that was. I'd do more bothering with straight people now than I ever did in my life. I never went in with straight people, because when you do, you get yourself in trouble.
Where are we going?
Well, you said you wanted to go slumming, so I picked a place to eat in the village. Only wild poets and anarchists eat there. It's pretty tough.
And go dashing up and down the hall. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. If a sailor in pajamas I should see, I know he'd scare the life out of me. And on a great big battleship you'd like to be, working a chambermaid as snug.
That's the ancient culture, the old Gnostic Bohemian culture, which existed in the carnival world, in the black world, in Harlem in the 20s, on Times Square, certainly, in Berlin, in the Cabaret Berlin that we read about in books and see in movies. That old culture exists since primordial days.
The Bohemian subculture was a pressure cooker advancing unconventional ideas. Here, homosexuals, cast out of genteel society, found a comfortable world in which to create. Many of America's important thinkers emerged from this homosexual underground, including Romaine Brooks and Natalie Barnett, Langston Hughes, Margaret Anderson, Tennessee Williams, and Gertrude Stein.
In the United States, between 1875 and 1940,
There were more than 500 novels with lesbian content published. And of course, with gay male literature, there's 5 times as much during the same period of time. Literally thousands of books.
Oh, I had them all. And even till this day, all the books are mine.
What you tell me about your lesbian novels that you like Anne?
Oh, well, first I'll start. You know how it started. The Well of Loneliness. From that on, everything that came past, I read it.
The 20s saw a wave of lesbian-themed books and plays like the best-selling The Well of Loneliness and the hit Broadway play The Captive. Both were declared obscene, and the ensuing censorship struggles made homosexuality a major topic of public discourse. Radcliffe Hall's appeal overturned the decision for publishers, but New York State outlawed overt references to homosexuality on the stage. Controversial plays like Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hour were tolerated as long as the word lesbian was not mentioned. In Hollywood, a film version of Oscar Wilde's Salome was produced with a purportedly all-gay cast.
Oh, are those fairies at the bottom of our garden? You cannot think how beautiful they are. They all stand up and sing when the fairy king and queen come lightly floating down upon their car.
But the censorship forces eventually prevailed, and by 1935, the Motion Picture Code banned all references to homosexuality. The hard times of the 1930s led to political and social unrest. Riots broke out in Harlem. Unions fought pitched battles for recognition. Families disintegrated as men abandoned their wives and children in unprecedented numbers, and both the radical left and right swelled their ranks.
These were times of the Great Depression, and there was much discrimination, much social discontent. In 1929, when I arrived in New York, I was invited to a small dinner party where Dr. Hirschfeld, a sexologist, who was the speaker that evening, and after dinner, he addressed the group telling of changes that were being brought about in Germany. He made quite an impact. He had worked so that men could dress as women if they wished, if they were properly identified. Regrettably, later that boomeranged. All these registered men were put in concentration camps with Jews.
The rise of the Nazis obliterated the early homosexual and feminist movements in Germany and propelled the United States into a war that would dramatically alter the lives of American homosexuals.
And we were all very, very patriotic.
When December 7th came, everybody was expected to do something. Since there was no one else, I felt that it was my duty to join the service. As soon as they began taking women into the Army, I joined it.
I can't say that I was such a patriot that I was glad to join. I did not want to get in there and get shot at. On the other hand, certainly World War II was something that really the country was behind, so that you had at least everybody behind you.
They come from every walk of life. By the 100,000, they are assembling at camps and naval training stations.